Part 2. Shelter Orders, Hungry Streets. The first rule of panic is that it spreads faster than truth. Mara saw it on campus before the city even fully noticed. At dusk, students gathered in clumps on the quad, their faces lit by phone screens that couldn't load anything useful. Someone had a portable speaker playing music too loudly, like volume could hold reality back. Others filmed themselves talking into the camera with wide eyes and forced smiles. A few kept repeating the same phrase. "They can't let it get that bad." Mara didn't argue. She'd learned from her father that denial was sometimes stronger than fear, because fear could be redirected. Denial just sat there, heavy and useless. In her dorm room, Eli and Mara moved with quiet purpose. They wore dark clothes without logos, sturdy shoes, no dangling straps, nothing that caught light. Their bags were packed, water full, food dense and rationed. Eli checked the small radio again. Static, then fragments. Disruptions? Limited fuel? Remain indoors? Mara listened for the shape beneath the words. The message wasn't, "Everything is fine." It was, "Stay where we can manage you." Eli leaned near the window and looked down. Campus security vehicles rolled by slow, not racing, just patrolling, lights off like predators with their eyes half closed. "They're nervous," Eli said. Mara nodded. Nervous means unpredictable. They waited until the dorm quieted in the way it always did after a loud day. Not silent, just exhausted. When it was fully dark, Mara opened the door. They stepped into the hallway. No dramatic sneaking, no movie tension, just careful movement and listening. In the stairwell, they passed a student sitting on the landing with his head in his hands. He looked up, eyes red. "Are you guys leaving?" he asked. Mara stopped. Eli's hand hovered near the strap of his bag, ready. "Yes," Mara said. The student's face tightened. "They said not to." Mara kept her voice calm. "They said a lot of things." He stared at their packs. "Can I come?" Mara looked at him for a moment, not unkindly. She checked his posture, his hands, his eyes. He wasn't dangerous. He was just desperate. "We're heading home," Mara said. "It's far." "I don't care," he said quickly. "I'll carry my stuff. I won't slow you down." Eli's eyes flicked to Mara, a silent question. Mara shook her head once, subtle. Their father had taught them another rule. You can't save everyone. You can only save who you can protect. Mara knelt on the stairwell and pulled 2 calorie bars from her bag. She handed them to the student. "Eat one now, save one for later." His hands shook as he took them. "Thank you," he whispered. Mara stood. "Stay with people you trust, and if you don't trust anyone, stay where you can lock a door." He nodded, blinking hard. Eli and Mara continued down the stairs without looking back. At the ground floor, the lobby doors were locked. A printed sign was taped to the glass. "Campus closed, shelter in place." Mara's mouth tightened. "Back way," Eli said. They moved toward the maintenance corridor where Eli had walked earlier that week by accident while learning exits and blind spots. The door required a key card. Mara took out her student ID and slid it. Green light. They slipped through. The maintenance hallway smelled like bleach and old air. Pipes ran along the ceiling. It made Mara think of tunnels overseas in videos her father used to show them, explaining why you didn't go into narrow spaces unless you absolutely had to. They reached a side door that opened behind the dining hall. Eli eased it open, paused, listened, then stepped out. The night air felt heavy, like it carried too many human breaths. The campus was still lit. Pathway lights made clean little circles across the sidewalks. Trees stood like polite decorations.
But beyond campus, the city sounded different. Not sirens anymore. Voices, distant yelling, and something else, a new rhythm. Helicopters. Eli pointed with 2 fingers. "Edges," he whispered. Mara nodded. They stayed off the main road, moving through the tree line, then along the back of the athletic fields. They crossed behind a fenced construction site and used its shadows like a blanket. They weren't running. Running made noise and drew eyes. They walked with a steady pace, the way you walked when you belonged. At the far edge of campus, they reached the service road that led toward the older neighborhood. Mara stopped. Ahead, 2 campus security guards stood by their vehicle, talking. One shined a flashlight onto the pavement lazily. The beam swung across the road like a slow sweep. Eli's hand lifted, palm down. "Stop." They waited in the darkness until the guards turned away. Then Mara and Eli moved, low and smooth, crossing the road and slipping into the gap between 2 buildings. Their father used to call it being boring to watch. "Don't be a story," Tom Hensley would say. "Stories get told." They became a shadow. They became nothing. They left campus, and the city welcomed them like a mouth. The first sign was the smell. Garbage, but not normal garbage. Rotting food mixed with stale smoke, and something metallic like pennies heated in a pan. They moved through back streets where streetlights were out or flickering. A storefront window had been smashed and boarded up with cardboard that didn't quite cover the hole. A mannequin's arm lay in the gutter like a warning. They passed a grocery store and saw it had been stripped. Not looted in a chaotic way. Stripped. Shelves bare, doors broken, carts overturned. And on the wall, someone had spray-painted 2 words, "No more." Eli swallowed. "How long has it been like this?" Mara answered quietly, "Long enough." They reached an intersection where the main road cut through. Headlights pooled there, bright and ugly. A cluster of vehicles blocked lanes, angled wrong. A crowd gathered, not a protest, a swarm. Mara and Eli stayed back in the shadows of a closed laundromat. Eli crouched and peeked around the corner. His face tightened. "People are stopping cars," he said. Mara leaned just enough to see. A group of men stood in the road with bats and tire irons. They weren't wearing uniforms. They were wearing confidence. One grabbed a driver through an open window and yanked him halfway out. Another reached into the passenger side and pulled out a purse or a backpack, tossing it to someone behind him. The crowd wasn't helping. They were watching. That was worse. Mara pulled back. "First group," Eli whispered. "Strong in numbers." Mara nodded. Predators in groups didn't need to be smart. They just needed to be hungry and unashamed. Eli pointed down the side street. "We go around." Mara nodded. They moved away from the intersection, keeping buildings between them and the lights. As they walked, Mara's thoughts flicked back to their father's stories. How fast places changed once food went scarce. How quickly rules became jokes. How men who'd never been dangerous before became dangerous because they realized nobody could stop them. And then they heard it. A cry. Not loud, not dramatic. A small, strained sound, like someone trying not to be heard. Mara stopped. Eli stopped with her. They listened. The sound came again from an alley beside a closed coffee shop. Eli's eyes met Mara's. This was the moment that split people into categories. Ignore it and keep moving, or risk it and get pulled into someone else's disaster. Mara whispered, "We can't fight a crowd." Eli nodded, "But we can check." They approached the alley mouth carefully. Mara took a position near the wall, half concealed. Eli moved a few steps in, low. A teenager sat against the brick, clutching his side. He was thin, pale, and sweating.
His eyes went wide when he saw Eli. "Please," the kid whispered. I'm not trying to rob anyone. I got jumped." Eli held up a hand. "Easy," he said softly. Mara scanned deeper into the alley. No movement, no footsteps, no other voices. The kid's hands were empty, no weapon visible. His breathing was shallow. Mara stepped in and knelt, keeping her body angled so she could move fast if needed. "Where are you hurt?" she asked. The kid's mouth trembled. "They took my bag. I ran. He pressed his hand harder to his side. "I think they cut me." Mara's voice stayed calm. "Let me see." He hesitated, then lifted his hand. Blood soaked his shirt along the rib area, not gushing, but enough. Eli's face tightened. "We don't have time." Mara looked up at him. "We don't have time not to." She reached into her bag and pulled out gloves. She put them on. "Listen to me," she told the kid. "You're going to stay very still." She gently lifted the fabric. A shallow cut, ugly but not deep, more of a slash than a stab, probably a knife meant to scare, not kill. Mara exhaled once. She pulled antiseptic wipes. The kid flinched. "Breathe," she said. "It's going to sting." She cleaned the wound fast, then pressed gauze to it. Eli knelt beside her and held the light low with his headlamp, angled away from the street. "Hold pressure," Mara told the kid. "Hard." The kid did, jaw clenched. Mara pulled a roll of medical tape and secured the gauze. She looked at the kid's face. "You have somewhere safe?" she asked. He laughed, a small broken sound. "No." Eli's posture tightened. He didn't like this. Mara understood. Safe was rare now. Mara reached into her bag and pulled out a small bottle of water. She handed it to the kid. "Small sips," she said. He drank like he'd been thirsty a long time. "What's your name?" Mara asked. "Jonah," Jonah whispered. "How old?" Eli asked. 17, Jonah said.
Mara glanced at Eli. Eli glanced back, and she could see the war their father had planted in them. Mercy versus survival. Help versus risk. Jonah looked up at them with raw hope. "Please," he said again, softer. "I don't want to die in an alley." Mara swallowed. She felt the old rule in her bones. You can't save everyone. And then she felt another rule, one their mother had taught them in the kitchen while preparing bandages and soup. Sometimes you save one, because if you don't, you become someone you don't recognize. Mara stood. "We're not taking you with us," she said. Jonah's face fell. Mara held up a hand quickly. "Listen, we're getting you to a place you can survive the night. Not the main road, not a shelter, somewhere quieter." Jonah blinked. "Like where?" Eli answered before Mara could. "The library," he said. Mara looked at him. Eli's eyes stayed sharp. "It's stone. It has back rooms. It has multiple exits, and people don't think to loot books." Mara nodded slowly. "That's smart," she said. Eli helped Jonah to his feet. Jonah swayed. Mara adjusted Jonah's arm over Eli's shoulder. "Can you walk?" she asked. Jonah nodded quickly. "Yeah, I can walk." They moved out of the alley in a staggered line. Mara took point, scanning ahead. Eli supported Jonah, moving slower. They kept to side streets. They heard shouting again, closer now. A group of men moved down a block, laughing loudly, pushing a shopping cart full of stolen things. Mara pulled them into the shadow of a recessed doorway. They waited, motionless, until the group passed. Jonah's breathing came fast, and Eli pressed a finger to his lips. Quiet. Not because they were afraid of a fight, because fights invited more fights. And Mara remembered something their father had said while teaching them to move through brush without snapping branches. Violence is loud. If you're smart, you don't let it announce you. They reached the library after midnight. It was dark, the big glass doors taped with notices, closed until further notice. But the building was still there, stone, sturdy. Mara checked the perimeter. A side door was chained, but the chain had been cut already. Someone had come through before, but that didn't mean someone was inside now. Eli lowered Jonah carefully behind a concrete planter. "Stay here," Eli whispered. Mara moved with him, and they did what their father had taught them years ago. Clear the space before you commit. They entered fast and quiet. The air inside smelled of paper and dust. Empty. No voices. No movement. They moved room to room, checking corners, listening. Nothing. They returned to Jonah. Mara guided him inside. "There are bathrooms," she said. "Water might still run." Jonah's eyes were wide as he looked around. "Are you just leaving me here?" Mara nodded. "You need a place to hide. This is better than the street." Jonah's face crumpled. "I don't know how to do this." Eli's voice came out low. "Learn fast." Mara pulled out a pen and paper from her bag. She wrote 3 things in big letters.
Stay quiet. Stay hidden. Don't trust groups. She handed it to Jonah. Then she pulled out 2 more calorie bars and a small packet of electrolyte powder. "Mix this with water," she said. "It helps." Jonah held the items like they were gold. Mara crouched in front of him. "If someone comes in," she said, "you do not call out, you do not beg, you do not make yourself a target." Jonah nodded, tears shining. Mara's voice softened just a fraction. "You can do this," she said. "You're alive. That matters." Jonah whispered, "Why are you helping me?" Eli answered this time, and his voice was quiet but firm. "Because the world is going to have enough wolves. It doesn't need us becoming them." Mara stood. She and Eli turned toward the door. Jonah called softly after them. "Wait," he said. Mara paused. Jonah's voice shook. "If you make it home, and if your parents are there, tell them thank you." Mara blinked. Eli's jaw tightened. Neither of them answered, because the truth was, they didn't know if home still existed the way it used to. They didn't know if their parents were safe. They didn't know if the gates their father talked about were already broken. Mara and Eli stepped out into the night again. The city felt hungrier now. Mara and Eli stepped out into the night again. The city felt hungrier now, as if it had tasted weakness and wanted more. Eli adjusted his pack. "We lost time," he said. Mara nodded. "We gained information." "What information?" Mara looked back toward the dark library. "That there are 2 kinds of strength, the loud kind and the quiet kind." Eli's eyes narrowed. "And we need to stay quiet." Mara turned toward the edge of the city. "Tonight we clear the last neighborhoods," she said. "By dawn we're out." Eli nodded once. They moved on, not as students anymore, not as kids with classes and semesters. They moved like people with a mission. Home.
We hope you enjoyed the story. There's more to come. Subscribe down below. These stories are written by us, helped by AI, and then we put it all together and bring it to you. Stay tuned for the next story coming your way.